Okay, this is another video about AsTeRICS grids. Today we're going to dive a little deeper into just how flexible grids are. I'm going to create a new grid that has a layout with various size buttons, with some space around them, to make it easier for students who are responding to multiple choice questions, A, B, and C. So I want large buttons, I want a little space between them, and I also want some placeholders for students who are using printed versions of the grid, where they can make a mark to indicate a choice. And finally, I'll add a button on the bottom to read the question, so the students who need to have the questions read again can manage that on their own, and a button to navigate to the next question. So let's get started. You want to go to AsTeRICS Grid, and you want to click on Manage Grids, and then we're going to create a new grid. We're going to call it, we're going to click the New Grid button. I'm waiting for it to respond. Let's try that again. New Grid. Okay, so it gives it a name, and I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it to A, B, C, and I'm going to call it ABC Responses 01. I click the check, and that actually creates the page. Okay, so let's edit this grid. And when we do, we can see that there's lots of rows and columns of elements, and the elements are the smallest size button I can make for this grid. If I change these dimensions, if I changed it to be, say, like 4 and 6, you can see I got 24 buttons. So I did a little mock-up in a table in a Word document and colored them so that I could just get an idea of what a possible layout looked like. And I pretty much settled on this, and it wound up having these big green buttons are going to be the ABC buttons. These gray boxes are going to be the placeholders. That's going to be my question button, and that's going to be my navigation button. So, and it works out to 14 columns, 7 rows. So, going back to AsTeRICS Grid, we're going to click on the More button and change the grid dimensions to have 7 rows and 14 columns. Okay, bingo. Now I want to create my 3 big question response buttons. So there's a method under New, when you go to the More menu, to create many new elements all at once if I know the labels. So in this case, I can type A, enter, B, enter, C, and just click Insert Elements, and there they are. Alternatively, I could have separated the labels with a semicolon. But now I have to reposition these buttons. I can just slide them wherever I want them. They're going to be 4 wide, a space, and so B will go there. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 wide, a space, and C will go, is that right? There. Okay. So then I resize the buttons. I can make them a 4 by 4 square. Just like that. Okay, the next 3 buttons are my placeholder buttons. I'm going to use a different method for this one. I'm going to just insert an element. It's not going to have a label. It's just going to be used as a placeholder. So, and I want it a 2 by 2. And it turns out you can copy buttons by right-clicking on them, choose More, and Clone. And I'll do that again. Right-click, More, and Clone. And that gives me my 3 placeholder buttons. Finally, I need 2 more buttons. I'm going to have a new element. Say OK. And this one's going to be the question. I'm going to clone that one, and I'll resize them. And let's move that one. That'll be the next button. And this one will be the question button. And that takes care of all my buttons. Okay, so the next thing to do is to define some actions for the buttons. I don't really need to do anything for ABC. The default action for any button is speak label and push the label contents up to the message box, which, by the way, I know it may be a little confusing, is also called the collection element. Okay, for the buttons below the say the big A, I should have I should have an action defined in the event that a user who's on a device can press it and hear what that choice implies. So, for example, let's edit the action on this one. I don't want it to speak the label, so I'm going to delete that action. It's in the list of current actions. I'm going to delete it. What I do want it to do is to speak custom text, because speaking custom text, the custom text won't appear in the message box. So it'll be like a cue for the answer. So in this case, I'm going to choose A, the dog was running. I've already done this, that's why. So I don't have to type it in, but you'll have to type something in. And in this case, it's A, period, the dog was running. The punctuation is important because it causes the text-to-speech to pause between A and the rest of the text to speak. In this case, the dog was running. So I'll save that. Let's define we'll define an action for the question. So I'm gonna edit the actions. Right-click, select actions. And in this case, I want to I want to hear the text of the label, and I want to see the text of the label, but I don't want it to wind up in the message box. So I'm going to delete speak label. I'm going to add a collection element action. So we're going to add that action. And the action I'm going to perform is clear the collect element. Okay, so but before I clear the element, I actually do want to speak the label. And the reason I'm doing it in this order is, I'll get to that, so we'll add speak label, is that when you click on a button, the actions are carried out in bottom-up order. So the first thing that'll happen is the label will get spoken, and then, and because it's the default action, it also sends it to the message box, where it'll be cleared by the collect element action. If I had left it the other way around, the message box would have been cleared, and nothing would have been spoken. You wouldn't hear anything. So I discovered this by experimentation. So the collection element has to happen last, speak label has to happen first. So we can save it. Okay, except for one thing, I forgot to define what I want here. And in this case, it's the dog in the story. I think in the story, the dog was running, eating, or sleeping. So we'll say OK. So let's just test it. So let's say, let's clear this response that's in here. So my user can say A.
A.
Okay, that's great.
A.
If my user's not sure, maybe I should check this.
A. The dog was running.
A. The dog was running. That's the way I remember it, so I'll say A.
A.
Okay, great. So what I haven't done is defined an action for the next button. But before we do that, I'm turning editing on, and I'm going to go back to Manage Grids. Now, probably before I defined the text for the question button, I should have left it blank and then cloned the ABC response a bunch of times. So if I click clone now, you'll see I have ABC response on copy. I'm going to rename it a little bit more succinctly by adding a 2 and then just clicking OK. So, but let's go back to my original grid. So I'll go back to Manage Grids. It's a little hard for me to see the scroll here, but all the way towards the bottom, I should see my grid ABC response 1. Okay, so this is the one I'm going to edit. So now I'm going to edit this button to say next, and I'm going to say OK, edit actions. I'm going to scroll down here, select the OK, edit actions. And in this case, I'm going to add an action to navigate to other grid. So we'll add that action. And there are two options. You can navigate to a previously opened grid. That's maybe convenient for, if you had a page that pops up and then you have a button to go back to the previous page. If you're showing the global grid, it's already in there, so you don't really have to do this. You can add the element to the collection element or the message box. And I don't really want to do that either, but I do want to select a different grid. So I'm going to select ABC responses 2, and I'm going to save it. Okay, so that should be pretty complete now. So after this question, if I click this button, I'll go to the next question. Okay, so there are two methods for printing the grid. The first one is right in the Manage Grids screen. And if you notice over here, there's a button that says Save as PDF. And if you click that, it creates it and downloads it. I'm going to open it, and you're going to see it's really nice, big buttons. There's my placeholders, and there's my question. It's a little plain vanilla, but it gets the job done. It doesn't have the blue marking. It also gets rid of the global grid, that strip on top that had the message box. For somebody working with on a paper printout, it's not necessary. So let's go back to my AsTeRICS Grid page. So the second method uses the browser's print. So let's show the page. And I'm going to go full screen. And now I'm going to press the Control key and P. And this works on Windows. I don't know if it works in other operating systems, but generally there is a keyboard shortcut to open the print dialog. And this is what it's going to look like when we print it. It looks very nice, but it does include the global grid, including the message box. So if my student made a response, it would show up there. So that may be a good way to record a student's answers. It's not very paper efficient, but you could do it. Okay. So that's it for this video.